All right, welcome to the review video for Old Testament chronology for quiz number 5. Let me first start by going over the kind of questions that are on the quiz, and then we'll go over a quick review of it as well. Hopefully you will watch this video more than once and before the actual day of the quiz as well. The first page of the quiz is a complete matching section. It is matching people with what they did. And the answers, the instructions say answers may be used more than once, or not at all. And so there might be some dummy answers in there as well. All right, imagine we've been talking about judges. Imagine we've been talking about kings. There were also some other characters that we mentioned in that time frame. And so pay attention to the different people and what they did. On the back page, there are some true and false questions. Be careful that I don't trick you. Don't overthink it. Is it true or not? All right? And then finally, there is an essay question worth 10 points. If I talked quite a bit about something, you might want to consider the different things that were mentioned, and so that you will do very well on the essay. All right, we did cover some judges. Of course, the last quiz covered part of the judges, but we did mention some other judges. The last quiz stopped with Gideon, and we mentioned that after Gideon, he had a son by a concubine by the name of Ahimelech. All right, or I'm sorry, Abimelech. And Abimelech killed all of Gideon's sons except for one. One escaped, and he reigned for 3 years. After Abimelech, there was a judge by the name of Tola. He reigned for 23 years, and he was from Issachar. The next judge was Jair. He reigned for 22 years, and he was from Gilead. All right, so just think about it. Issachar reigned 1 year longer than Gilead. All right, one was 23, one was 22. That'll help you remember that. Then we mentioned the next judge, Jephthah. Of course, Jephthah was quite a well-known character. He was brought. He was an illegitimate child who was cast out of Gilead, and then when the Ammonites attacked Gilead, they brought Jephthah back to be their captain. And Jephthah said, well, I will, as long as I can rule over you. And Jephthah started by trying to negotiate with the Ammonites. And we find out that that didn't work out. And so Jephthah made a very rash vow. Now, we spent quite a bit of time talking about Jephthah's vow. And, of course, some people believe that he did, in fact, end up burning his daughter. We mentioned the fact that it is possible that he didn't burn his daughter, and we mentioned some reasoning why. Whatever you might believe about that, the truth is we know that Jephthah shouldn't have burned his daughter. And we know that from different scriptures. The book of Deuteronomy prohibits human sacrifice. And so if we were talking to Jephthah, of course, we would tell him, don't sacrifice your daughter because the Bible says it's wrong. We also mentioned the fact that the book of Leviticus actually had a loophole, you might say, in which if a person devoted another person to the Lord, as in an offering, kind of like Hannah did for Samuel, that they could, with money, actually fulfill that vow by purchasing, in a sense, giving the Lord a certain amount of money, and they could fulfill that vow. We did mention the fact that Jephthah very possibly did this in the fact that it doesn't actually say he burned his daughter. It does say he fulfilled his vow. It doesn't use the word burning. It also mentions the fact that she bewailed her virginity. And the idea seemed to be that Jephthah's lineage didn't go on, and that was what was sad about it. Not necessarily that he burned his daughter. And we mentioned the word lament in that passage when the girls would go yearly and lament with Jephthah's daughter. The word lament has the idea of recounting, as though maybe they went to talk to her every year and recounted the fact that we're sorry that you can't get married, that you'll never be married and never have children. And so those are some thoughts there on Jephthah's vow. Whether you believe he burned her or not, definitely the Bible says he shouldn't have, all right? We mentioned the fact that Jephthah later fought against the tribe of Ephraim because Ephraim got angry at him and for not inviting him to the battle, and he killed 42,000 Ephraimites because they couldn't say the word Shibboleth, and they couldn't pronounce it. We mentioned several other judges: Ibzan, who reigned for 7 years; Elon, who judged for 10 years; Abdon, who judged for 8 years. But the next main judge was Samson. We mentioned that Samson was a Nazarite from birth. All right, not a Nazarene. All right, that was Jesus. All right, a Nazarite. We mentioned the fact that Samson broke his vows in many different ways. One of the things he did was he did kill a lion and got honey out of the lion. That definitely violated his vows. One of the crazy things that Samson did that we mentioned was the fact that he caught 300 foxes, tied their tails together, and burned down the Philistines' fields. Later, Samson used the jawbone of a donkey to kill 1,000 men. He also picked up the gates of Gaza and carried them about 36 miles away and dropped them off. All right. Of course, Samson had a weakness, and that was Philistine women. And he married a Philistine woman. Later, he went into a harlot that was a Philistine. And finally, Delilah, who was a Philistine, became his downfall when she cut his hair. Of course, he died, in the temple there of Dagon, bringing the temple down. We mentioned the fact that it's very likely that Eli and Samson judged at the exact same time. And that seems to work out there. We had a couple of strange stories at the end of the book of Judges. We mentioned, of course, the story of Micah. Micah stole some silver from his mother and built his own image. Later got his own priest as well. And we mentioned the fact that the tribe of Dan ended up stealing that image and stealing his priest, almost killing Micah. And it became the downfall of the tribe of Dan. And they literally went into pagan worship for pretty much all the way until the captivity. We also mentioned the Levite and his concubine. Of course, that unfortunate story in which the tribe of Benjamin was almost completely destroyed. We mentioned after the book of Judges, of course, the book of Ruth. And Ruth, of course, was a Moabitess. She is the one that went into the fields of Boaz and gleaned from his fields, eventually marries Boaz and becomes part of the lineage of not only King David, but also Jesus Christ. We mentioned during the United Kingdom period of time, we mentioned the first king, Saul, who started out as a very humble king. He was from that very small tribe of Benjamin, which was probably very small at that time, since the fact that they were almost wiped out in the book of Judges. We mentioned the fact that Saul became king, but eventually he began to fall away, began to get prideful. He did not wipe out all the Amalekites as he was told to do. He also sinned in that he offered a sacrifice when he should have waited for Samuel. We mentioned the fact that Samuel was the judge during the time that Saul was reigning. And, of course, eventually Saul consults with the witch of Endor and finally meets his demise. We finished out last week's lesson with King David. And we said that King David had a kind of a tumultuous journey. He started out as a shepherd. He became a musician. He became the king's armor bearer. Then he became the war hero of Israel by killing Goliath. After he killed Goliath, he became the captain of the host. And then Saul got jealous and made him a captain over 1,000. So he started kind of going backwards there for a while. Eventually, he becomes the king's son-in-law, although the king originally didn't give him his firstborn. He did marry one of the king's daughters, whose name was Michal. And then he became an outlaw. So kind of up and down, up and down, up and down. Eventually, though, King David does become the king. And so we see that that David does end up exactly where the prophecy told him he would. I think that's a pretty good review video for this. Hopefully you'll study hard. We'll see you on Thursday.